watched that Chris Herron 30 for 30. I knew in that moment that I was a real alcoholic. And I've known that. I mean, I had 3 DUIs. I've been arrested for fighting in public and drunk in public. And,
I've been to rehab twice.
Justin, a sober coach, author of Sober 365, Daily Lesson to Break Habits and Addiction, and has done 4 TEDx talks.
What was the goal for you back then?
To be happy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Relentless Goal Achievers podcast. I'm here with my good friend, Justin McClure, and if you don't know him, you're going to know after today, and you're going to hear one amazing story. Justin is a sober coach. He's the author of Sober 365, Daily Lessons to Break Habits and Addictions, and has also done 4 TEDx talks. He's got over 10 million followers across social media platform. Justin and his family have been one of the most entertaining families since 2017 on YouTube. Just research him. And he's partnered with Damon John. I mean, when you talk to Justin, when I talk to Justin, you're going to understand how going sober changed his life completely. Justin, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. I love talking about goals, my goals. I love inspiring people about their goals. A couple things. I don't have 10 million followers. My family does. I'm by far the ugliest out of 5. I'll tell you that much. And I'm pretty damn good looking. But my family's beautiful. They're entertaining. So I don't have 10 million followers. My family does. We make positive, family-friendly content that kind of inspires people. I'm very proud of the work we've done because we stay in the area of being positive, whereas a lot of families might exploit their kids or they do pranks and awful things. We work with the biggest brands in the world because we've stayed positive. I'm kind of like an edgy Mr. Rogers, which I would say. And I want to clarify, my book is not. I think you said, I don't know what you said, but it's
Daily Sober. Yeah.
Daily Sober. Yeah. You said something else, which is
365. Fine. I think that's what. Sorry, my bad. I must have wrote it.
It's Daily Sober.
The 365 lessons for breaking habits. Okay.
It's a lesson a day, which we can talk about. So I'm not a sober coach by monetary means. I haven't figured out a way to monetize it as much as other things, but it's a way that I can help and give back to what's been given to me, which I'm 11 years sober. So 12 years ago, I was not on a winning streak. So 12 years ago, I saw and read things that started to change my mind. And that's kind of what this is. If somebody needs it, maybe this can be the one thing that they needed that maybe set a seed in their life to set them on a journey to be healthier, happier, and ultimately more successful.
So talk to me about Justin 12 years ago or even 13 years ago.
Well, I was a stand-up comic for many years. I made a living at comedy. I did 10 years in LA, and I traveled and I worked every club across the country. But basically, I think it was just a way to really fuel my alcoholism, because even while I was a comic, I was getting DUIs. I got 3 drink DUIs. I went to jail 6 times. But, Eric, I thought I was just a crazy guy. Like I gave myself permission to just be crazy. I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just that crazy guy that people have stories about. But then, 12 years ago, almost 12 years ago now, I was living in New York City. And here's a story that I think people might like. 12 years ago, I was living in New York City and nobody told me anything. Nobody told me to stop drinking. But there was one day that I said, if I can just go out with this woman, will I be happy? And this is an occurrence in my life. If I could just do this, would I be happy? If I just won the favor of that woman, would I be happy? So I went out with this woman and she liked me a lot. And then I walked home that night from the date at like midnight and I was miserable. And I thought to myself, why am I miserable once again when I got the thing that I said that I wanted? So I got home and I was really upset. I'm like, why am I so miserable? I said I wanted, if I could just date this woman and she likes me, I'm miserable. So I turned on, it just happened to be on. It was a 30 for 30 called The Chris Herron Story. And Chris Herron was an NBA player who wasted his career through drugs and alcohol. I started watching the movie and I related to this guy because I played basketball. I'm Irish. Chris Herron is Irish. And then in the movie, he got sober and he became a hero in his community. And I thought, wow, that was really cool. Like he beat it. But here's the whole point that changed my life. In the movie, he got sober and he went back to a place where he drank and used. And he said, right here at the 7-Eleven is where I passed out while my wife and my kid were at the airport waiting for me.
Mm.
Eric, I looked at the TV and I said, that is pathetic. And then I said, oh, wait, that's you. Because a week before that, I missed a flight because I was drunk for something important. And Eric, in that moment, when I saw that and he said that, and I said, that's pathetic, I had so much shame go through my body. It was like the first time in my life I really saw who I was. I looked in the mirror and I said, you are just a drunk person. You're a womanizer. You manipulate relationships. You don't have any money because you waste it all. You're not just a wild and crazy guy. You don't have that past anymore. So I had shame go through my body, but at the same time, Eric, right after the shame, I had inspiration and hope because I said, you can make a choice. Like you can make a choice. So right then, this is all a true story. As I felt shameful and I had a little bit of hope, I said, tomorrow, just don't drink. I don't care if I punch a horse in the face. I don't care what I do wrong. I don't care what I do wrong. If I curse people out on the subway, just don't drink. And the important thing for anybody listening here that I've realized over the years is that everyone wants to change their life with 7 different things. They're going to lose weight. They're going to wake up early in the morning at 5 a.m. They're going to start reading books. They're going to meditate, blah, blah, blah. Just stop eating the snacks. So for me, the one thing is I said, you know what? I'm just not going to drink tomorrow. And I haven't drank since. So one day led into another. Then I started going to AA. I got a sober. I started listening. All these different things. The point there, what really happened, Eric, is my ego started to diminish. And when your ego diminishes, you find a little bit of humility. So it's kind of how you can't have a lot of humility and be egotistical. So as the ego diminished, I started to learn about empathy and humility. And then I started to learn that I'm like, man, Justin, then I started going to therapy. Every Wednesday, I went to therapy for a year on Wednesday, and I started to learn why I was abusing myself the way I was and why I was making the decisions. And then I learned through, neglect and childhood trauma, I learned that I had to have an outlet somehow, and that my outlet was alcoholism and being insecure and wanting people's attention, that type of thing. Because I was an alcoholic, a drug addict, but I was also a womanizer. And it wasn't that I loved women. It was that I just needed validation. I needed for women to say, you are worthy to be around. You're funny. You're attractive, whatever. And that's why, Eric, I went from woman to woman, because I said, if this woman can make me happy, I'll be happy. But then once you have that woman, you realize you have to go to another one because you're not happy. So what therapy taught me is it taught me how to love myself. And then I started to become bigger than the addiction. And when you get bigger than the addiction, you don't go back to the addiction. But if you don't get bigger than the addiction, you'll always go back to that bad habit because it still dominates you. So that's kind of a little bit of my story there.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Thanks for sharing that. What did you learn in therapy of what caused you to be that way?
Yeah, I don't want to say it's a typical cliche thing, but maybe people can relate to this. My mother had me at 16. My dad died when I was 4. So my mother was 20 with 2 kids and a widow, raised in the rural South, North Georgia. We were very poor, Salvation Army poor. People from the church donated to us. My mom had to sew my clothes, that type of thing. So we were very poor. And with that, there was a lot of neglect. My mom made bad choices with men. So there was men in and out of the life. So I did not have a childhood. I did not have love, that type of thing. So in my 20s, when I realized that drinking made me funny, it made me open up more. I was like, man, give me more of that. And it was fun for a long time, right? Until it wasn't anymore. So my childhood in therapy my therapist was basically like, Justin, why don't we figure out how you can love yourself a bit more and forgive some of the things that happened to you because you didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. And so once I realized some of that, I said, yeah, I can forgive myself and I can learn to love the person that I've become. And then because I'm very much into like Eastern spirituality. I love Alan Watts. I love a lot of these things. Because in the bigger sense of things, I realized I might live to be 88, 92, 84 years old. I want to live the rest of my life and be happy. I want to forgive what's happened before and not be angry about it or not have issues with it. How do I start clean and be happy for the rest of my life? And for me, I knew that alcohol could not fit into that life anymore. So that was my why. Because I think when people stop doing something, a bad habit, what's their why? What's their why? Oh, I'm just going to stop because I got a DUI. No. That's something acutely that happened in your life. So for me, in the long vision, I'm like, I want to be happy and I don't want stress, because the other thing drinking does, and drugs and women, you have to look over your shoulder. You have to check your phone all the time. Did I lie about something? What story did I tell? In a sober life, if you live sober, it's more than not drinking or abstaining. It's also getting rid of your character defects. It's not lying to my wife or cheating on my wife. It's being there for my kids. When they say they have a game on Thursday at 6, I'm going to be there at 5:45, ready to watch. I don't have to lie about anything. So that to me is a sober life. So wanting to live a happy life was really my why for getting sober.
How come you don't? Well, two questions come to mind. One is the forgiveness part, where you had to forgive yourself. Was it for the abuse you've done to your body or for your childhood?
It was really both, because I thought for the longest time, and maybe other people can relate, I thought there was something wrong with me. Why didn't my mom want to love me more? Why didn't she pick a right guy that could be my dad? What's wrong with me? But then you realize, Eric, is in therapy, I put myself in my mom's shoes. I said, this woman had me at 16. Her husband died when she was 20. Instead of me, I was like, what was it like to be her? Because if I became a dad when I was 20, I would be awful. I would have been terrible. So for the first time in my life, I'm like, wow, maybe I need to forgive my mom and look at her life and have some understanding about what she went through. I think she did the best she could given the circumstances, and she would have done better if she could have done better. Once I realized that, I was able to forgive her and myself more.
So this is the piece I want to truly understand. When the therapist is trying to get you to forgive yourself, what is it about your childhood that they want you to forgive?
Well, yeah, like I said, that I wasn't good enough.
That you felt like you weren't good enough?
Yeah. And also that's why in my 20s, why I felt I needed to, quote unquote, collect women and people, because I felt I wasn't good enough. But the more people that validated me made me feel like I was good enough. So in my childhood, the fact that my mom wasn't around a lot, I didn't have a dad, and there wasn't a lot of people I was close to, I felt that it was me. I was the problem. I wasn't good enough for people to love. So
And because you felt that way, you had to forgive yourself, because obviously you're not in alignment with what God created you to be.
Right. So I realized with my therapist that I was good enough, and it wasn't my fault. It
Right.
wasn't my fault. My mom made poor choices, and maybe she did the best she could, but she made poor choices. And it wasn't that I wasn't not good enough. I was choosing to look at things through my own lens of myself. And I had to look broader than that. And I was able to forgive myself and then realize that it wasn't my fault.
When you think of your mom as you were going through therapy, did you have a conscious kind of thing you were holding against her, or was it more on a subconscious level? It was conscious. You were angry with your mom for your childhood. Okay, got it. And what is the process? What does the process of true forgiveness look like?
Um, I'm only thinking because I want to give you the honest answer. I'm trying to go
Yeah.
back of all that. I think the true process for me was really understanding what her life might have been like. What I said previously, when I really could put myself in her shoes and know that she was a 20-year-old widow, um, and she had her own issues. And then I started to dig deeper into understanding my mom and like, well, what was her childhood like? And it wasn't good. It was equally as bad as mine. So my mom, and I don't know about my dad because he died so young, but they were not given a good head start. They didn't make bad decisions to hurt anybody on purpose. They didn't know any better. So once I could stop being selfish about Justin and start looking at the other variables involved, I started to realize that once again, that people might have done better if they could have done better, but they didn't know any better.
For people who are listening and watching this, knowing what you know now, why do you think one of the first steps the therapist took you through was to forgive?
Um, well, because if you don't forgive, then that's stress that I'm holding within me. Because the people that I don't forgive are out living their life. So if I don't forgive you, Eric, for something you've done to me, you're out there doing your thing, and I'm harboring this thing. It bothers me. So once I could release that stress or that anxiety that I felt, these feelings, this forgiveness, I was liberated from that. And then my mind was more open to a better relationship. Because I don't think we're open to a healthy relationship with somebody we love if we're holding on to resent, if we don't forgive. But once I could forgive, I was open to a new relationship with my mom. And I'm very thankful that, my mom and I had a great relationship. I mean, she passed away recently, but we had a great relationship the last many years of her life since I've been sober, because I was able to say, Mom, I'm okay. I'm good. And I wouldn't have done anything differently. I said, Mom, your son had a lot of troubles in my 20s and early 30s, and but I'm good now, and we're all good, and I wouldn't change a thing. Thank you for being
Man,
my mom, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you for who you are.
how good is it that you were able to get that off your chest while
Oh,
she was alive?
I mean, I think I would have so much guilt. I'm very proud of myself because when people aren't here anymore and you can think about them, as a memory, I really, really am happy because I still remember the day we were walking. And, Eric, to have these conversations, it's difficult to say you love someone, or like it's difficult to say, Mom, can we talk for a second? Sure.
Well, it's difficult if you've never been brought up with that as a child, for
it was
sure.
it was difficult, but I remember walking and I just said, Mom, I want to let you know that I love you for who you are, and we've had our differences, and you know that I'm good now and I'm happy, and I'm genuinely happy. And Mom, I wouldn't change anything. I love you for who you are, and for the mother that you've grown into becoming. And my mom, she cried, and and I think she needed this forgiveness from me. So this was a gift for her. And so I was so happy that I was able to give that to her, because equally it gave back to me to see how great this made her feel.
Man, that's incredible. For people who are holding on to something right now, what advice would you give them if they're holding on to that anger, some trauma that happened to them in childhood, and they're still mad at their mom or their dad or their uncle or whatever? What would you tell them to do?
Well, I have a few lessons in here that I wrote about from personal experience. Well, the
And
way,
some people might be listening and not watching this on YouTube. You
okay.
want to
Oh, I'm
share
sorry.
a little bit about what that
Yeah.
is?
So I actually wrote about that in my book, Daily Sober, which is 365 daily lessons. So I have lessons in here on resentment and forgiveness. So in this book, the reason I love it, I'm so proud of it, is a lot of my personal experiences, things that I did. And I remember, like with my mom and other situations, I would journal about it. That was my release. If I'm mad at Eric, if I'm mad at you, what I would do if I have something I can't forgive and I want to, what I do is I tend to take long walks and I hash it out, and I get angry on the walk and I try to get it out. I get all the anger out, and then I go journal, and then I just write out my feelings until I'm not angry anymore. And I think that's been my secret is people don't give themselves permission to be angry. People don't give themselves permission to be frustrated. I do. That's part of the life experience. When me and my wife fight, there's 30 days in the month. If we fight for 2 days, I'm like, is today one of the days? Let's go. Because if we only fight for 2 days out of 30, we're good. That's a great relationship. But when we do fight, I don't try to stop it. I'm like, okay, is today one of those days? Let's go. Let's get it all out. So for me, with forgiveness, a big thing has been kind of meditating on it and then journaling on it until I don't feel that way anymore, until I pretty much exhausted that. And then I start to be open to forgiveness.
How does that work? I mean, that's kind of counterintuitive, right? Have you ever read like Think and Grow Rich?
By Napoleon Hill?
Yeah.
I've read it a couple times, yeah.
So when he talks about, when what you focus on, you get more of, right? Intense focus will breed more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I hear you saying is you're going for a walk. And I believe you became an unconscious competent with this. So like to you, it just comes natural. And I could hear that when you're like, yeah, I just journal and I just walk. To me, I wouldn't know what to do with that. Like if I'm angry, I don't know what it means to go for a walk to hash it out. Like walk me through the steps of
Well,
that.
for me,
And really quick, if the way I'm thinking about it, if I start dwelling or thinking about why I'm angry, I just get angrier because I'm not thinking
that's
of
your choice.
that's my choice. Yeah, you're probably right.
But I'm going on that walk not to be angry. I'm going on that walk to get it out, to forget.
That's the key.
So when we manifest, and you make a good point, if I focus on the goal of running a marathon, I'm going to focus on that goal of running a marathon and run the marathon. My goal to start is to forgive you, not to be angry, but to forgive. I have to get all the anger out first. Otherwise, the forgiveness is not true and it's authentic. Hey, Eric, I forgive you. That's a whole different thing than actually getting it all out and really saying that to you, knowing that my heart has been cleansed, knowing that I really have shedded myself of all the feelings that I have inside.
Man, what if somebody that you were angry at passed away? Let's say you had some resentment and anger towards your father and he's no longer around. How would you go? What would your forgiveness process look like with that?
Well, I think we have to do that, and some people do it different ways. If people are spiritual or religious, I think in a way I could speak it to the universe, and you're almost speaking to that person. Sometimes I've had conversations with people that aren't here because you're just kind of speaking it to the universe. And once again, I mean, for me, I prefer walks. I prefer nature. I prefer to be part of the universe. And when I'm part of it, if somebody's not here, I almost feel like they're still part of me. And luckily, that's not applicable for me. And I'm knocking on wood here because nobody that's passed away do I have a resent towards me. So, but that's a good lesson going forward to make sure that doesn't happen. To make sure that because we never know when we'll pass away. We never know when somebody's going to go, and we're like, oh, I feel guilty because I didn't resolve this conflict.
Man. All right. One more question about that part of your life and we'll move on. Why do you think that day you said to not have a drink the next day, that was the goal versus like, instead of 10 drinks, I'm going to have 2?
Good point. Because when I watched that Chris Herron 30 for 30, I knew in that moment that I was a real alcoholic, and I've known that. I mean, I had 3 DUIs. I've been arrested for fighting in public and drunk in public, and I've been to rehab twice. There's no having 2 drinks because I don't know how. I'm wired, and maybe other people are. It's not that I'm an alcoholic or an addict. I'm wired to do everything very well.
I love that.
And so it's not arrogant, but if there's lines of cocaine in front of me, I'm gonna do it better than anybody else. So there's no having 2 drinks because I'm gonna want to have 20. So I have to remove the drinking at all. It's kind of like with my wife. Like she can have a piece of cake. She can have a bite of cake. I don't eat sweets because I'll eat the whole cake. So it's kind of like the way that I'm wired. And I think a lot of people with that addiction mindset, and that's kind of like getting sober. I just said, and this is really important for your audience, for anybody listening who thinks that a lot of people, they see me now and I'm successful and like, money's not an issue, none of that stuff. And so they think that's not obtainable. But I try to tell people 12 years ago, I was the same guy. I didn't become smarter. I didn't manifest any skills. I just said, let's instead of putting your energy here, put it here. That's all I did. It's kind of like that analogy. If the plane is going to this city, but you divert it by 1% left or right, it's going to end up in a whole different country by the time it gets there. So
That's right.
it's kind of the same thing. It's just putting my energy in better places and being patient with that. And that's kind of been the story of like how things in the long run turn out to be much better.
And that's a chapter out of Napoleon Hill's book too, right? I mean, he's got a chapter on transmutation of sexual energy, and we all know energy can never be created nor destroyed, and sexual energy is the most creative energy out there.
Yep.
And so, I mean, the act of sex literally creates life. There's nothing more creative than that energy. And what you're saying is, hey, once I stopped womanizing and drinking, I still had all this energy. What did you channel it towards?
Yeah. So here's kind of leading into this. You might say, well, Justin, what did you do with your time? Here's something great to inspire people of how far you got to go, how far you have to go. I was living in Manhattan. I was working on Wall Street, but I was living in Washington Heights, which is 5 miles. So this is what I did every day after work. I walked 5 miles. I didn't take the subway, even in the snow, even in the rain, even in the coldest winter. I walked every day for about 9 months because I felt if I took the subway home, I might be so bored that I might go to a bar or I might try to start dating or something like that. I said to myself to remove all of that because, Eric, in the first year of sobriety, I didn't know if I was strong enough, if left to my own devices, would I go back to these temptations. So I said, when work is done around 5, I'm going to walk all the way to Washington Heights. It would take me till about 10 o'clock. But if I do that, I can't go to bars. I can't do things I don't want to do because it's going to take me the entire time. But you know what happened in the first 6 months? I got healthier up here because I was listening to podcasts. I was doing things like audiobooks, Napoleon Hill. My mind was changing. The biggest thing I tell people is people, places, things. I changed the things I was doing, the places I was going. That's what I changed in my life was the biggest thing. But instead of taking the subway home and sitting on my couch and like, oh, what am I going to do at 7:30? I said, I'm going to remove that whole thing until my mind gets stronger. So it's kind of like you have to go to links with your energy. So when I stopped drinking and stopped womanizing, just because I stopped drinking day one didn't mean I didn't want to womanize. I did because that's all that I knew. But the hard thing was I said, my life is going to be difficult for a while, and I accept that. Going back to what I said previously, I can't run from my emotions. If I'm angry, be angry. If you're frustrated, be frustrated. If you're sad, lonely, be sad and lonely. But I didn't want to go back to drinking because I knew that would make me miserable and feel guilty and shameful. So I said, change your people, places, things. Walk every day after work. Be patient. And eventually I got healthier, especially when I started going to therapy.
What was the goal for you back then?
To be happy. I was just miserable. I was just really. I remember writing a suicide note, and I remember writing it, and I wasn't sad. I remember the note basically was just like, I'm just done trying. It's just like life is just exhausting. Because I felt, Eric, I'm a good person. I never wanted to harm people. I'm genuine. I work hard. I'm like, why is life just not working out for me? I feel I'm a good person. And so really it was more survival, I guess. I was just like, how do I become a happy person in life? And so for me, I was kind of at my last straw. And I said, I think I just need to try to not drink and see what happens from that point.
Man, amazing.
So the not drinking led to not womanizing, led to not, using drugs. It led to not being around egregious behaviors. It led to not wasting my money. And then, a long story short, I was very proud of myself. I did not date for a year and a half. So I was sober through alcohol and drugs, but also women. And then a year and a half into my sobriety, I randomly met my wife in New York City. I was getting out of the subway. She was across the street, and my wife is very curvy. She's Nigerian. And these two guys were chasing my wife. They're like, hey, baby, hey, baby, hey, baby. I walked across the street. I walked right up to the person I didn't know, and I said, this is what I said. I said, hey, listen, these guys behind you, like, they're not going to leave you alone. You know how these guys are. Like, why don't you just walk with me and just pretend like you know me? They'll leave you alone. They'll think you're here to meet me and blah, blah, blah. We walked around the corner. The guys left her alone. We had a little conversation, and she became my wife.
How long after that did she become your wife?
This is the even better story. So, so Eric, I hadn't dated in a year and a half. At this
You
point,
were ready.
so my wife is out of my league gorgeous. Like, she's out of my league gorgeous.
I saw the pictures.
Yeah, she's
You're 100% correct.
she's phenomenal. So here's a. So we go into a restaurant to eat, and the same day, and I'm looking at this woman. I'm like, this woman is gorgeous. I want to get laid. Like, it's been a year and a half. So she tells me that she just got out of a bad relationship, and she has twin daughters that are 1 year old. 1 year old. She shows me a picture, and I get sad because I'm like, I just want to get laid. Like, this woman, like, she got these young kids. Anyhow, we'll talk about how this happened. I didn't want to be a dad or a husband. I didn't want to be a dad or a husband. Within a year, I'd married this woman and adopted her kids. The power of that is that in sobriety, I told myself, maybe I want what I don't know that I want. Maybe I want, maybe be open to, my way got me to where I was. Maybe don't think you know what you want with your life. Once I was open to that, after about a month, I met her daughters, and within 2 hours, I said, I'm going to be their dad. And that is one of the most powerful things that have ever happened in my life, because I didn't have a good childhood. I didn't have a dad. I didn't have those type of skills. But I knew, looking at these little girls, I want to give them what I never received in life, because they're so innocent. And I looked at life as in this little vessel, and I'm like, I could really do great in this environment. And so we got married within a year. I adopted them. My wife she was in a very bad relationship with a guy who never saw the girls, and he cheated on her, and et cetera. So I wanted to protect the girls. So I adopted them. And then 2 years after that, we started making YouTube videos. And one went viral, put us on Good Morning America, The Today Show. Everyone was like, who's this family? We want to follow them. And next thing you know, it put me in a situation where in sobriety, I was able to take my energy from here and learn new skills. I taught myself video editing, filmmaking, storytelling, graphic design, Photoshop. I taught myself digital marketing, everything so that we could be successful. So that when people look at us now and we have 12, 15 million followers, that is no accident. And that's not arrogant to say that it is very well deserved. I earned it. Just like I earned my DUIs, just like I earned my jail time. We earned this because we worked hard at it, but it all happened by accident. But in sobriety, I met my wife. My mind was open to a family. That happened. And the whole thing with YouTube and social media happened by accident.
All right. What was the video that went viral?
It was called, I don't know what we call it. It was called, I think, 1 Minute Older. That's when my twins, who are sitting there, and my wife is talking to them, and one twin realized that one is 1 minute older. So
how old were they at this point?
A year and a half, I think, maybe almost two. No, I'm sorry. They're probably about two and a half, because they're talking. So they're identical twins, and the one that's younger gets upset because she wants to be older. But then a minute later, the one that's older realizes she's a little bit taller. So then the one that's older starts to cry. So it's kind of like this adorable moment.
Oh, that's cute.
It put us on, like I said, a big stage. people
But what
started.
was your goal? What was your goal for creating videos with the family? Like, why did you even start that?
Oh, I was trying to document our lives, like because when I did stand up comedy, I've always been a creative. So I wrote jokes, I wrote for TV. I was a decent photographer already. So I was just like, being sober can have boredom if you don't have passions. So now coming home from work, I don't drink, none of that stuff. So I said, I want to start a YouTube channel, and I didn't know how to do it that well. So we were like going to the park and petting geese, and going to fairs and stuff like that. Like they were dumb videos. There was no effort there to monetize. So it was really just trying to document our new family, because I knew that one day our kids would look back and they would see themselves like kind of like a yearbook, and that was kind of the whole purpose until the videos went viral, and then I think overnight we had like 100,000 subscribers.
Wow. And
Like,
what does that mean money wise?
well, we didn't know at the time because we didn't monetize, but then we got an agent. And then within a few months, I remember our first brand deal. It was for a video game. And our agent said, hey, all you got to do is talk about this game for a minute and a half. It's $12,000. And I was just like,
That's insane.
for, well, I'm like, yeah. Do you want to do it? Yeah. And so it was $12,000. I mean, and since then, I mean, we've worked with we work with Disney every year. We work with Walmart every year. We work with Target. Right now, we did deals for Nike and Gap. Like we've done deals for everybody. But the first one I remember, it was like $12,000, and I was just like, this is crazy. That was probably 2018, maybe.
Wow. Kudos to you. I don't think any of this happens by accident. Like, you would not have been you. You probably would have been at some bar if you never gave up drinking, and you would have never met your wife.
I mean, I might be dead. I might have given up on
You
life.
might have been dead.
I might have said, I can't do it. I think the hope that I'm trying to give people through my story is it's not heroic about Justin, because there's nothing special about me. There's something special about what I did, but anybody could do that.
Hmm.
It took, what did it take for anybody listening? It took patience, and it took humility, and it took a diminished ego. That's all it took. From that, better choices were made. But I'm telling you that the patience is important, because people say, I want to get sober, I want to lose weight, and things don't happen in a week or 2 weeks, and they give up and they get frustrated. I knew that I wanted to be happy at 77 years old or whatever. And I said, well, the choice is now to start to set that up. And so the patience was just start making better choices, and don't worry about the consequences or if life is bad, because even in sobriety, you're going to lose jobs. People are going to break up with you. Life is going to happen. I can't go back to drinking, because in drinking, drinking never got me a house, a wife, a job, a car. I could lose all of those things though, but I'll never gain one of those things. I could lose it all, but I will not gain anything. And so logically, I think if you can write things on a piece of paper, binary, and you can like, what can I lose? What can I gain? On the lose column is everything. Well, then don't do it.
Man, I love that. I didn't tell you this, but I stopped drinking. It'll be 2 years in December.
Love it.
And I was like a bottle of a tequila at a day, not every day, but like on a weekend, Friday night, Saturday, I could go through a bottle easy. And just like that, I came home one day and I was at the gym. I was listening to Bedros Koulian's podcast, and he's like, hey, I gave up drinking. It's poison. Don't want to do it. And I've heard like 6 months leading up to that point, alcohol is poison, alcohol is poison, alcohol is poison. So I'm in a gym January 5th, bam, hear it again. And I haven't drank since New Year's Eve. So it was about January 5th. And I get home, my kids are sitting down. I said, boys, guess what? They're like, what's up, Daddy? I was like, I quit drinking alcohol. And my older son looks at me and he's like, really, Daddy? He's like, that's awesome. I hate when you drink.
How old is he?
He's going to be 15 tomorrow.
Okay.
So he was, 13, I guess 13. Yeah. So he looks at me. He's like, "That's awesome, Daddy. I hate when you drink."
Ah,
So that one anchored in. Like I still remember how he's just an innocent little boy. He didn't know what it meant to me that he said that. So 2 days go by. Me and him are alone in the car. I'm like, "Hey, you said that you hate it when I drink. What was it about me drinking that you hate?" He's like, "You act like a stupid teenager." I was like,
mhm.
"Got it." But that was it, man. And I have not picked up. I haven't had alcohol since. Feel great. So yeah, kudos to you. It's
But you
not an
also had
easy
your
thing to
moment.
do.
But I mean, you had your moment too. Like what you just described to me was equally as poignant, as powerful as the moment when I watched that video by myself. And I have kids, and I can say, man, I never want them to see me holding a beer. I really, my kids are so proud of me. My kids, like, when they first learned about my sobriety, my daughters are 11, around 6 years old, I was explaining, but every time we'd go out and there'd be wine there, they'd be like, my dad can't go in, he's sober. I'm like, no, good girl. So, but like, my kids love, right before this podcast, my son, he's 6, he's on YouTube, and he watched my daily sober from yesterday. So yesterday was about alcohol's impact on sleep. Because Eric, I'm kind of a biohacker. I'm really into metabolic disease, and like, so when I go back to when you talk about alcohol as a poison, the way it's fermented in your body, it is a poison. It will shorten your life, and that is another thing. So, but anyhow, my son, he right before I did this podcast, he said, "Dada," he's 6 years old. I just watched the thing you did yesterday, and I watched you edit it because I was editing it, and it's alcohol's impact on sleep, how it affects your hormones and everything else. And so the beautiful thing about that is not only do I don't drink, my kids see me doing my videos every day. Because here's the other inspiring part, Eric. It don't stop. It don't stop with me. This book, I'm doing a video a day,
I love
every
it.
day for it. So I give you ain't got to buy the book. People, Daily Sober, go to my Instagram, Daily Sober. Go to the website, dailysober.coach. The whole thing is for free. And here's the other big lesson is the joy is in the journey. If nobody bought the book, I wrote it and I know the effort. And every day I do my little video. And the other good thing for the lesson I want to give for people building a business, entrepreneurs, I wrote the book on purpose to say, okay, I kind of want to have a sober coaching business, but I don't want to struggle for content. What if I wrote a daily book that's going to be very difficult to write, but that's also going to give me the content every day? What am I going to talk about? Let me flip to the page and just read it. So yesterday was about alcohol's impact on sleep. Is something different for today. But the point is, in my sober mind, I took my energy from one place, and now with this, my goal is, and you talk about goals, I'm on month 3 of doing a lesson every day. I'm doing 12 months. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of 12 months. And this is the powerful thing. My life is going to be changed. I know it. I know
No
it. I
doubt.
know it. I know it because I'm doing the work. And just like in sobriety, I didn't know what was going to happen. At the end of a year, I know that my life is going to change. I'm going to get opportunities I don't know about. I'm going to get speaking engagements I don't know about. I'm going to be invited by people who say, "Man, I saw this thing." That's how I have a relationship with Damon John from Shark Tank. The same
Tell
thing.
us about that.
So Damon, his daughter is like 7, and she watches us on YouTube. And Damon was like, who's my daughter watching on YouTube? I gotta see who this family is all about. There's a lot of trashy families on YouTube. So he saw our family, he liked us, and then his daughter said, while watching a video, his daughter said, "I like this family because the dad looks like mommy, skin color." Because Damon's wife is white. Anyhow, I also invented a light. I have a prototype and I have a patent on a light. So I reached out to Damon. I said, "Damon."
How did you know he was watching you? Did he comment or something, or how'd you know?
He started following me on Instagram.
Holy
Me.
shit!
Yeah. So Justin McClure, JK McClure on Instagram. My wife is like, Damon John is following you.
But wait, at this point, you already had how many followers before Damon?
Oh, I mean, my personal Instagram is like 300,000.
Right. So you already had some
Yeah.
pretty good a good amount of
Yeah,
followers.
yeah. Like in my bio, it says I'm the dad to the mighty McClures, which is our, our pseudonym. I've done 4 TED Talks. So he started following me. My wife is like, Damon John is following you, and that's only relevant because I invented a light that we already said it'd be great if I could get on Shark Tank
Get
because
out of here, man.
because this story feels like it's made up, right? Because my light is a solution to a problem that I invented as a YouTuber. It works with every device, whatever. And so anyhow, I hit up Damon in the DMs. I said, "Hey, I really love that you are a fan of us, fan of you." He's like, "By the way, I invented this light. I don't know if there's any advice you have." But I sent him like some CAD files so he knew that I'm serious. Like it's not an idea. He wrote back and he said, I can't mess with that because of Shark Tank, but man, I love your hustle and your family's great, right? I said, no problem, all love. A month later, he's like, hey, what's your number? So then we started talking. I think Damon was watching me on YouTube, and he's like, kind of like the way this guy moves. Like he's positive, man. Everything he does is like with his family or like in whatever it is. And then next thing you know, he invited my family down. The whole family went down. This is about 2 years ago, and we just developed a friendship. And the cool thing is, we have a relationship with this light. But I'm gonna tell you something about Damon John. Like he is the real deal. Just a phenomenal person. He even told me, he's like, Justin, if the light's not a home run, let's do something else.
Love it.
Because he likes the way I moved. And Eric, you're gonna love this. He's 2 years sober.
That's great.
So as Damon started getting to know me and he loved that I was sober, he was like, Justin, I haven't drank for a while either. Now it's been about 2 years and now he talks about it publicly. It's the same thing. He feels better. It's poison, blah, blah, blah. And so he likes me around because of like that, also that type of influence. But the last thing I want to say, you got to be patient. Because when people tell me, Justin, are you surprised that you met Damon John? He became part of your life. I'm not surprised. You might be, but I'm not. Because when you stay the course and you keep your head to the ground and you stay positive, you're going to meet the people you need to meet. When you need to meet them, it's not going to be on your timeline, but it will happen when it needs to happen. So when Damon John came into my life magically, I was like, you know what? I'm not surprised. I'm grateful, but I'm not surprised. So I want that to be a lesson to everybody listening, that you got to just stay the course, and the people that you need to meet, the places, the things, they're going to happen when they need to happen.
Justin, we got entrepreneurs here who want to get on the TEDx stage. You've been on it 4 times. We got entrepreneurs here who want to go viral with YouTube. What are a couple of pieces of advice you can give to guys like me and my listeners that would love to get on a stage like that and go viral?
Well, the main thing is like, every TED Talk, I had a very compelling story that I put together. And I think this is what's made us really good content creator, is I take my ego out of it completely. And I say, what's going to entertain the viewer? Not what I want to do or say, but what would they want to hear? What vulnerability would make them walk away and say, wow, that was great. So with the TED Talks, I crafted a few that was like, okay, I built a 7-figure business in sobriety, but before that, I was a drunk and all these other things. So I took my life from here to there. Here's that story. I also did another TED Talk about my wife and I, about how I'm a rural hillbilly from North Georgia. How did I marry somebody outside of my race when really growing up, we only had like one black person in my whole town? How did that happen? Well, so I crafted that. So when I got my TED Talks, I specifically crafted very particular points of view and this is going to be the audience takeaway. So basically, every time I speak like that, I try to make it easy for the person making the decision. They're like, yeah, we definitely want this guy because my audience is going to leave with like this valuable lesson. And also, when I'm making content, I try to entertain people. I try to say, how can we entertain people to make them laugh, to make them feel good? I think too many people, they look at it from an egotistical point of view, and also they have too much fat in their content. They have too much redundancy. You got to keep the story moving. So I'm very good about keeping the story moving. almost having the audience guess about what's going to happen next instead of over explaining it.
Do you have like a formula or something? Like if you were to teach somebody that, is there like a specific, like, do these 4 steps and your videos are going to be entertaining?
Well, I mean, I do teach. I consult with really big companies, and it's basically that. It's basically know that your audience is smarter than you think, and almost mystify your content. Don't over explain. Cut the fat. Don't have intros. Don't talk to the camera that much. Have a lot of B-roll overlays. The only way somebody's going to keep watching your content if they keep having to guess at what's going to happen. If it becomes really predictable, they're going to get bored and they're going to tune out. My wife was watching some crappy movie last night, and she's like, Justin, why'd you stop watching it? It's so predictable. I know what's going to happen. It was boring. So the same thing with us. If our content gets boring, now we got about 4 seconds for people's attention.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have to mystify it like what's it? But after 15 seconds, if they're watching, then maybe you got them hooked.
Man, I love it. Justin, is there anything that I did not ask you or we didn't talk about that you wish we did?
No, but I want to say I'm really glad you shared with me that you're 2 years sober, and that was a great little story about your kids there. It just reminded me of like how happy I am as a family man that I'm sober and that, that's not part of my life. So I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah. Hey, man, thank you so much for coming on, being so authentic and open and energetic. You pumped me up for the day.
Love it.
One last question. What's the rest of that cassette tape on your wall say? I see pause if you must, but
don't stop.
But don't stop. Love it. Pause if you must, but don't stop. My takeaways from Justin today, ladies and gentlemen. Be patient. Become the person that you want to be first, and then everything else will come your way. Justin, where can people find you and follow you?
If you want to watch YouTube, you can type in Mighty McClure. We're mostly family, but Instagram really is where I'm most responsive. Justin McClure, JK McClure. If you're interested in sobriety, and you don't have to buy the book, I give it all away for free. But Daily Sober, the book, I would love a review on Amazon though, and the website is dailysober.coach.
dailysober.coach. Thank you, Justin. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, everybody.